Okay, in this video, we will go over the movie mythology of DDLJ, Dilwale Dulhania Le Jayenge. One of the iconic and one of the most famous movies in Indian or Bollywood film industry. Um, but there's a movie behind, there's a story behind the story. And that's kind of, if you do not understand anything from this video, at least take this lesson away that all the stories are allegories. And all the persons and characters in the story are personifications. They're personifying something. All right, so let's get into it straight away, and hopefully you can comprehend what I'm saying. The protagonist of the movie is not Shah Rukh Khan, actually. It's actually Baldev Singh Chaudhary, played by Amrish Puri. Okay, what does Baldev mean? It means virile and strong. Singh means lion. And Chaudhary, this comes from the Sanskrit. Chaw means four, and Dari means streams. So the word four is very significant because this word four will come again and again. Because this signifies your material consciousness. So at the beginning of the movie, we see Baldev Singh Chaudhary in London. Again, we'll go more into the symbolism later, but to start out, that's Baldev Singh Chaudhary. He's the main protagonist. His wife, Lajo or Lajwanti Singh, played by Farida Jalal. She is actually the feminine aspect of the protagonist. And Lajwanti means one who conducts himself or herself with modesty, decency, or decorum. Okay, which is very important for spiritual progress. His daughter, and she's actually the co-protagonist in the movie, is Simran Singh, played by Kajol. I think that's one of her most iconic roles. And Simran, you take any language, Simran in Punjabi becomes Smarna in Hindi and Gujarati, which means remembering your divine self. This is when you do meditation and you abide in your divine self. Smarna in Sanskrit means death of ego. Sa, marna. Sa is ego, means nafs, as you know in Arabic. Marna is death. Okay, so in Arabic, this becomes dhikr or zikr. So this is what she personifies. And obviously, she is the daughter of her. So she is a physical representation of his Shakti, his sexual energy. Okay? And his younger daughter is Rajeshwari, played by Pooja Ruparel. Raj means kingdom, Ishwar means God, so it's kingdom of God. Shah Rukh Khan plays Raj Malhotra. Raj means kingdom or rule. And it's allusion to what we saw above, kingdom of God. In Bible, Luke chapter 7, verse 21, 21 particularly, Jesus says, kingdom of heaven is within you. Okay, his last name Malhotra means master, or in some references it becomes son. Anupam Kher plays Raj Malhotra's father, Dharamveer Malhotra. Dharamveer means upholder of dharma, righteousness. In Mahabharata, Yudhishthir was the character who played the role, who actually was the role of Dharamveer. Now, on the opposite end, Kuljit Singh, played by Parmit Sethi, means Kul means family or lineage, and Jeet means victory. So essentially, this means perpetuation of your family, or in other words, reproduction. That's what it means. We already went over the stories as allegories. Now let's switch over. Okay, so the movie starts with Baldev Singh in London. London is a western city. West represents material consciousness. It's pretty apt that the river in London is Thames, and etymologically Thames comes from tamas in Sanskrit, which means darkness. So he is in darkness, and he is originally from Punjab, India, Punjab. Well, Punjab. I mean, now it's divided, unfortunately. But Punjab is a spiritual place. So that's where he's from, and he is seen feeding pigeons. Then again, he goes and says that I've been in London for 22 years. 22, 2 plus 2 is 4, again signifying material consciousness. And he is feeding pigeons. Okay, and when he's doing that, there's a song that plays, Ghar Aja Pardesi. So that is an inner calling, inner voice that is calling him to return to the spiritual place. And then he is brought back to, again in his to London, uh, with the tolling of church bells. So this is allusion to For Whom the Bell Tolls, by Ernest Hemingway. There's more bells in the movie. We'll get into that later. I think I already discussed the daughter. So Simran in particular, she represents his Shakti personified. So again, to kind of stress this, if you do not get anything out of this whole presentation, just understand that all the stories, whether it be Ramayana or biblical stories, they are allegories, and all the characters, they are personifications of a concept. Okay. The train is seen when Simran is trying to board the train in Europe, as well as at the end of the movie. The train represents your spine. And in this movie, originally, Baldev Singh has committed Simran. His sexual energy to Kuljit, which is reproduction. Kuljit is seen many times with guns. Guns are phallic symbolism. Okay. Now, 22. He says that I've been in London for 22 years, which symbolizes the material. He's still in the material consciousness. This is a professor. What's her name? Chutki, the Rajeshwari. She has a professor called Miss Lucy, and that Lucy means light. Lucius is light in Latin. All right, coming back to bells. So you see church bells at the beginning of the movie with Amrish Puri. Then there's a cowbell, like one of those that you see throughout the movie, which is a symbol of Simran's love with Raj. So this gives you also an illusion. Church has bells. Even in Indian temples, when you go in, when you're offering your prayer, you ring a bell. So it's an invocation. So that's what it symbolizes: an invocation of your divine self. And Raj, when he's being introduced to Chutki Rajeshwari, he gives him a small bell. Throughout the movie, Raj calls Simran Senorita. Senorita in Spanish means maiden or virgin. So this is symbolic of sexual purity or honor. So honor means the purity. Okay. Raj, Shah Rukh Khan often wears a hat which has an eagle with spread wings, and so which is symbolic of illumination. And it's right on the crown chakra. Chaudhry residence in London is, the number of the house is 13, so 1 plus 3 equals 4, which again symbolizes a material consciousness. But again, as they go back to India, in one shot they show that his house, the name of the house is Prabhu Kutir, so house of God. So now they're abiding the spirit. This is interesting that you see Raj drinking Stroh beer. Stroh means straw in Deutsch, German. You see Shah Rukh Khan moon gazing when he's trying to remember Simran, and then later you also see Karwa Chauth, the ritual of Karwa Chauth. It's actually supposed to be the ritual of sublimation. or which is purification or elevation of sexual energy. So this is when ladies of the house fast for their husband. Well, originally this was supposed to be a fast for everybody, and then later, as our societies they started becoming more and more patriarchal, they lost the symbolism, and now they make women do the fast for their husbands. But we are supposed to do our body, our material self is feminine, and and God, matter is mother, feminine, and pater, father, is feminine. So we are all supposed to do this fast. Uh, and so this is a ritual of unconditional love. So this doesn't mean that you can only do this if you're a woman. You can do this even as a man in a physical body. Okay. You see Raj wearing purple shirt when he's about to go meet Simran and his family at Chaudhary residence, and also he wears a purple chunni at the end of Mehndi Laga Ke Rakhna. This song, a very famous song throughout India and Pakistan, Long Gavacha. This song is used as a subtext when Baldev is talking to his mother and Lajo regarding Simran not feeling good and everything like that. So it's serving as a subtext, saying that long is a ornament worn on nose, but what it does symbolize is when you have a lot of sexual energy stored in you, your face and your body glows. It's not something that people can see directly, but you can sense it. It's like je ne sais quoi, as they say in French. So usually people say, "Oh, your ornament looks good," kind of like sola singar. And so when you say long gawacha, meaning I have lost my glow, and so then actually the mother actually refers to that Simran ke chehre pe chamak chali gayi hai, meaning Simran has lost glow, and so that's what they're referring to. So a lot of times, I'm pointing this out because sometimes certain songs and certain things can be subtext, and that's really the subtlety, the artistry that goes into it. It's not really apparent directly, but if you pay enough attention, you see certain songs are acting as a subtext. Same as Ichakdana, Bichakdana. Because this was the movie, this is from the movie Sri 420, which again is a hugely symbolic movie coming from Raj Kapoor and his production. Kuljit, you see him falling from the horse. That's again symbolic of falling from grace, and then later he is seen hanged upside down, and so that's kind of symbolic or symbolic of the taro hanged. Okay, where were we? Yeah, मुझे वो छत वाला पसंद है. This is a dialogue that is another clear symbolism that Raj is playing the divine self, because they've already been introduced, and Raj is a very easy name to remember, but she still says मुझे, rather than saying मुझे Raj पसंद है, she says मुझे छत वाला पसंद है. So this is symbolically, she's saying I like the divine self better. And this is just something interesting. Satisha, one of the most comic scenes in the whole of Bollywood is the that scene of a Mahabharat scene where they play what do you call that, Ludo, the version of Ludo, Chopat, and they lose, and he plays dead Draupadi, and the whole comedy that ensues. So he's the dead Draupadi in Jane Bhi Do Yaro. So I thought that's interesting, and I don't think it's a coincidence that he plays father of Kuljit. And Amrish Puri, he usually plays negative roles, like Mogembo and so many other memorable roles, but this time he is the protagonist of this movie, playing the positive role. So that kind of goes into the whole symbolic synopsis of the story. Now, this is mainly for aspiring screenwriters. If you enjoy screenwriting, Chris Vogler has a landmark book, a really important book about screenwriting. It's derived actually from Joseph Campbell's work, A Hero with Thousand Faces, but he has actually made it more streamlined. The stages that Joseph Campbell describes, he makes it more streamlined. If you don't have the book, there is a Wikipedia page on writer's journey. Just kind of Google this, and you'll see a Wikipedia page. So it helps you kind of refer this if you're interested. So in the stages, they are. So this script plays really well in terms of like how it follows this whole sequence. So ordinary world, that's the stage one. This is life in London. You see that they're kind of living normal physical life, but there is something. You see Amrish Puri, he says that, there's that song Garaja Padesi, so there is an inner voice that he hears, but then also when it comes to Simran, she has this song, she writes that beautiful poem that Aisa Pehli Baar Hua Hai 17-18 Saalon Mein. And then after that there's a song, Mere Khabo Mein Jo Aaye, at the end of which she does that Jesus, the cross symbolism. So that is the ordinary world, but it's a normal world, but they know that something is missing. Okay, then there's call to adventure, that she is supposed to get married with Kuljit. She has in Simran. It's a very, I think one of the most important dialogues in this movie is when like he says that when Simran gets, she shies away. He is Amrish Puri, Baldev Singh. He says that मैंने लंदन में भी हिंदुस्तान को, लंदन के दिल में भी हिंदुस्तान को जिंदा रखा है. So that's actually that's one movie that sums up this ordinary world, the first two stages. That he, even though they live that material life, they still have the memory of Hindustan. So Hindustan or India representing the spiritual. And so after that, she wants to go to Europe, and then stage number 3 is refusal to heed the call. This is when Farida Jalal, Raj Lajo, she says, well, if your daddy agrees, then you can go. And then Baldev Singh comes home angry because Shah Rukh Khan kind of gets that beer deceptively, and so he's mad. So that stage is refusal to heed the call. And so, but still, next morning she prays, and then she will ask Baldev Singh if she can go to a Europe trip, and then he agrees. Meeting the mentor. This is that iconic scene where the mentor is played by Raj, and so he meets her, and he plays really happy-go-lucky throughout the movie. And so he meets her, that iconic scene of him on the train and she trying to catch the train. So that's the stage, meeting the mentor. Crossing the threshold. This is usually threshold is when you cross this threshold, there's no going back. This is a point of no return. And so this is when Simran falls in love with Raj, and then now, she knows that she has to get married to Kuljit, but this is such a dilemma that she loves Raj, who actually plays the divine here, with all her heart, and then she cannot marry Kuljit. Okay. Test, allies, and enemies. This is when Baldev Singh takes Simran and his family to Punjab, and Raj follows them, and allies, enemies. So this is when Raj befriends Kuljit, and he mingles with the family, and then later Dharamveer Singh, Anupam Kher, he also comes to India. So that is this stage. And then approach to the innermost cave. This is when Raj refuses to run away with Simran. There's a scene when Farida Jalal, she gives all her jewelry and says run away, but Raj says no because he'll only marry with the permission of Baldev Singh. So what this signifies is God will not snatch you. You have to submit yourself to God, to divine with your own free will. So that this is kind of what that signifies: your own free will and accord. Um, and then Achla Sachdev, she plays mother of Baldev Singh, and she is requesting the wedding be preponed by a week. So that now it adds to the urgency. Speaking of, it's very fitting that Achla Sachdev plays mother, and then in Waqt she's the Zora Jabi, and the song is essentially recorded on her. It's supposed to be on her. Meri Zahra Zabi. I just thought I'll just throw it in there. Baldev Singh, he finds out, there's a Deus ex machina moment where that photograph flies away, and Baldev finds out that Raj and Simran are in love, and so after that the ordeal ensues. The ordeal is the final fight, between Raj and Kuljit. It's essentially the fight within Baldev's, It's actually played out outside, and then Baldev has an epiphany. And stage number 9 is the reward, where he allows Simran to go and marry Raj. And so this is when, for the second time, she runs and she catches the train with Raj. Um, and there are a few more steps, but these 9 steps kind of sum up the movie extremely well. So just kind of write them down, or if you're interested. Again, this may be just way too much to take in. I get that. If you cannot understand anything, at least understand that usually most of the movies or any stories, because movies are modern mythologies essentially. Because Rama and Mahabharata, these are mythological stories. They represent something. So these stories are allegories, and every person or every character in this movie is personification of something. So hopefully this video at least leaves some impression on you. If you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment. Otherwise, thank you. I'll see you in the next video.